All right. Good morning to you guys. I trust you had a blast. Here's why. I want to tell you why Citizen TV's Stephen Letoo situation just got worse. Okay. Over the weekend, there was a rally. Um, there are also press briefings. There are also political salvos that were exchanged and traded. The barbs against each other. That's the president alongside former Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua, who had a nasty fallout that was spearheaded by an impeachment. So the president was at Milimani. He attended a church service right over there. The other side, former DP, was in Kariobangi. And what transpired were chaos, literally mayhem. And let me read to you an article that says, quote unquote, this is what Rigathi Gachagua is saying to Stephen Letoo. It says, just resign and go vie with UDA. Gachagua calls out Stephen Letoo of Citizen TV for misinformation. And quote unquote from the article, when Rigathi Gachagua attended a church service in Kariobangi, police officers fired tear gas canisters at the church and even the Sunday school children. However, Stephen Letoo of Citizen TV reported that police officers didn't fire tear gas. Gachagua has decided to call out Letoo for misinformation. Gachagua said that this is a very huge shame and disappointment for such a famous media personality working for a trusted media source to tell Kenyans lies. Gachagua claimed that he was aware that 2027 Letoo will vie for a political seat under UDA ticket. Hence, he has been trying all the best to sanitize the government through his news reports. Letoo reported that in Kariobangi, police were separating two gang groups and they didn't fire tear gas at the church. However, viral video shows Sunday school children in tears as they battle with tear gas smoke and also tear gas smoke in the church. And I can see as well there's reactions to that. So yesterday was the day that this report actually caught the attention of a lot of people. And Stephen Letoo is under fire for filing that report and taking that angle. But I also need to make you understand, as a journalist myself who has studied broadcast journalism with a degree, with a diploma in broadcasting, now going for my master's, is that when it comes to the modus operandi, in media we call it the house style of a station. It goes in line with the decisions and the choices that editors have to make. And that's literally the angle of the story. And so depending on the station, if the station can be easily manipulated, if the station is sucking up to the government, then they will arm twist the story and make it sound like the other characters who are in fact the victims were the ones on the wrong. And when you look at the state of Citizen TV, Citizen TV has been consistent. Citizen TV is one of the leading broadcasters in this country. It has been there since I think I was born. I don't know. I found it there. I was in when I was in university, in high school. Now I'm out. Citizen TV is still there, going strong for decades, informing Kenyans and with their shows, programming, and whatnot. So, what we need to understand as outsiders is that whenever you're a reporter, because I've been a reporter as well for the longest time, whenever you are a news reporter, you are sent you are assigned on the duty rota, your name and the story that you'll be following up on. So you can follow the story until it ends or it dies on, or until sometimes the editors kill that story. The reason why editors can kill your story is because maybe they feel like that there's also several ways of killing the story. They can kill the story so that it doesn't go on air today, and maybe it can go on air tomorrow, or maybe after a while, as more developments to the story continue building up. For example, if you're reporting on the issue about the current pausing of immigration laws and entry to the United States by President Donald Trump, you cannot entirely just make a summary that this is the final, verdict of immigration processes according to President Donald Trump. It's a developing story. So there'll be incidences where President Donald Trump would say, now I'm in good spirits with, Somali. Now we can work after I've spoken to the president. So that's why a story there can be one reporter following that story for a whole entire year. Also, your story can be taken away from you and given to another reporter who they feel is best suitable to report on such an issue or such a matter, especially human interest stories that touch on crime, that touch on, I'd say law, that touch on social justice issues, activism, just literally the whole aspect of society at large. That's why it's very important for you outsiders, people that don't work in media, for you to understand that editors determine how a story runs station or a news desk. So if your sub editor is running the desk means that, yeah, he's in charge of assignments. He's also in charge of monitoring and actually choreographing the direction of the story and how it's going to be told. So you also need to understand when a story is being edited, when a news piece is being edited, a whole news piece is called a package. That means it has an intro, it has a bridge, it has a voiceover, it has, say, different voices from different angles that contribute to the storyline. The editor determines how long this bite runs, how long should this voice speak. So it's usually in seconds. Others, like a whole news package could take 3 minutes. 3 minutes is enough for a whole news package. 3 minutes is, in fact, there's a feature in like places like in media, in established media companies like CNN and BBC and the rest. But a whole news piece should be at least 55 seconds, 55 seconds to, say, 55 seconds to a minute. Presenter links as well, because I was a trainee presenter at Classic 105 in Kiss FM. There's types of presenter link. Presenter links are, for example, now music plays. So for example, let's say it's Burna Boy, Last Last. So how do you commentate on that on that link? So usually for radio stations, they have softwares that before you become a presenter, you're trained how to speak with that software, so that if you're speaking for 30 seconds for that intro link or that mid link or that speed link, the software runs out like it's a timer. For example, now the song is about to run out, so you're watching on the machine right over there. Maybe it's let's say it's G Selector running the station, or Radio Jazzla, or Synergy, whatever is running, whatever the radio company uses to run live shows. So you see it's 10 seconds, 5 seconds, 3 seconds, and then you have to speak in like 10 seconds. So you'd say, good afternoon. This is Classic 105, Good Times and Great Hits. My name is Sakwa. Welcome to the Evening Drive show. Coming up next is Mariah Carey with Love Takes Time. Like, the software runs you out and it cuts you off the air. So you can't extend your speech or your commentary. Now, so what usually happens is something called program scheduling for radio. So a music scheduler who also schedules your presenter links where you will speak. So you just come to be in robot mode, There's most serious stations and professional stations, they can't allow you to extend your talking, especially if you are, let's say, in entry level in presenter, in being a radio presenter, a radio personality. If you're in entry level, they'll have to schedule your presenter link so that you can only, maybe the longest presenter link you can have could be 2 or 3 minutes. 3 minutes, that's the time you'll talk on air for the longest time. But it's scheduled since for the first hour, maybe for the first hour, it's an hour has 60 minutes. So maybe you'll have, like, let's say, 10 presenter links or 20 presenter links. And then in the next hour, 10 presenter links is a lot though. Yeah. Because I remember with my training in Classic, there's so many things that I went through. It also happens for each and every different radio or TV station. So you can never be totally in charge of the angle of the story. And I'll use that to defend Stephen Letoo, because I know what happens in the behind the scenes with sub-editing and editors and, the decisions and choices, also the effect and the impact of the story. Either the producers as well as the editors can decide to kill it or give it to somebody else. Also, now that Citizen TV is just, sucking up to the government. I actually watched one of my, not even watched, I was scrolling through socials and I came across this tweet. It was from one of my former lecturers at Multimedia. Shout out, yeah. I wish I'd go to it, but I don't want to read it. So I don't want to put him on step, but shout out to Mr. Kidaha. He had shared something about Citizen TV and he said, he just feels like Citizen TV is the new KBC. It's just that because it's a leading broadcaster, and all government advertisements are diverted onto that platform. And so Washira Waruru and the owner, who is now what is his name, Masharia, Mr. Masharia, they are trying to play safe, because also recently there was a directive from the Communications Authority of Kenya, of course, spearheaded by ICT Cabinet Secretary, that is Kavogo, Mr. Kavogo. They said they want all stations to favor government in their production. So they don't want stations to criticize government, because if they do, according to Mr. Kafogo, the government will pull out advertisers, and that would leave you with no money. But I don't think Citizen TV really has to suck something to get advertisers from Gava. But anyways, it's one of the leading media companies. And you know, when it comes to media ownership in this country, you also need to understand that most media companies are politically aligned, not just even in Africa or in Kenya alone, but even in the United States. Like in the United States, Fox News is like a mouthpiece for President Donald Trump, away from CNN and BBC. But the owners of most big media franchises are usually, I don't want to use that name, but most of them are usually industry elites in the entrepreneurship business, in this big tech companies, in the data industry. They're usually tycoons, and you know, they have a way of navigating around issues. They are trendsetters, they're narrative setters. They come up with agendas that actually have to be driven either through digital or the TVs and the radio stations. So each and every media house has a voice and a fear of the owner, who is a billionaire. And so they'll always align themselves with maybe a leading political party or a leading opposition political party. And that's what's literally happening right here in Kenya with Citizen TV. They have to play dumbbell. They have to get stuck on stupid so that they continue getting those advertisers, because it's difficult to function independently as a media owner in this country. You start your radio station and you'll see utapigwa vita hadi utoke kwa hiyo business, because kuna watu wa kusema. There's a lot of gatekeepers in the media. In terms of media ownership, licensing, frequency distributions, signals, and all those things, you have to suck on someone for you to continue staying on top. But for those that have been in the space for a very long time, their name speaks for themselves. And I believe Citizen TV shouldn't be sucking up to, you know, the government and twisting the story so that it aligns or favors, you know, the government. But what has been said here, according to Rigathi Gachagua, is that allegedly, apparently, Stephen Letoo is going to be running on a UDA ticket in 2027. So, I mean, Stephen Letoo, you can do better, bruv. You can do better. But I understand that story probably wasn't in that angle or that direction that it was filed to take, was maybe in the best interest of the editor of the station, or also if you are the editor of that story and the sub-editor at the same time, because you can be, depending on the size of that newsroom, maybe you're the one. But for me on this other side, as a journalist who's been on the news desk, who's done radio, who's still in broadcast, I can tell you your situation just got worse. But yeah, it could get better. Anyways, speaking of better, away from that, now I want us to take a look at some of the trending hot stories, especially with the dailies. And I have a copy of the People Daily, the Standard newspaper, as well as the Daily Nation. Now, the People Daily has an interesting splash. It says, why Rutonomics is choking Kenyans' future. I like this. Why Rutonomics is choking Kenyans' future. Across Kenya, families and businesses are living in a reality marked by suffocating taxes, soaring prices, shrinking jobs, collapsing small enterprises, and ever-tightening grip of public debt inside what many now call a debt trap economy. And then there's also a description right there that talks about the real is turning to chips ahead of 2027. The story is on page 8 of the People Daily newspaper. And then they've also given an interesting, colorful breakdown. Let me just get this right. Yeah, here's what it says. It talks about Ndindi Nyoro's fiscal warnings. 145 billion, the Talanta book financing Talanta Stadium, which Nyoro says will cost 145 billion over 15 years, not the stated 145. Interesting stuff. Right now, another description talks about impact on society and youth. Youth unemployment remains high, with many resorting to gig work, borders, deliveries, hawking. Another one is a generation is stuck in survival mode, unable to save or invest. Economic pressures contribute to rising crime, mental health issues, family stress, and cities due to rural migration. And then another one that talks about inside Ruto's death trap. Economic strain is worsening for ordinary Kenyans, rising cost of living. Small businesses owners face crippling increases in the prices of key commodities. And then as well as businesses are forced to shrink portions or raise prices, risking customer attention. Uh-huh. That's actually the splash on People Daily. And then he talks about, can Mudavadi and Wetangula survive without a complete political rebrand? That's a good one, because Wetangula and Mudavadi, who is for current foreign affairs, also prime cabinet secretary. Mudavadi, Wetangula is Speaker of the National Assembly. They both massively represent the Mulembe community, and they have to play their cards well, because in 2027, the Mlembe nation will be counting on them. But it just looks like there's a bit of resentment towards, what Musalia and Wetangula are doing. So I don't know. Please let me know what you think about that if you're a person from the Mlembe nation. Now, on the Daily Nation newspaper, it talks about how opposition lost Malava and Mbeere North. And then on top of that, it talks contest. By-elections were billed as a chance for the president's rival to test their popularity. The description to that is the Mbeere North and Malava constituency seats seemed the best bets for opposition candidates, but the ruling party won both, albeit with narrow margins. Besides the heavy state machinery, past voting patterns, clan politics, and population influenced the outcome of the polls. The story is on pages number 4 and 5 of the Daily Nation. And then there's a photo as well of Rigathi Gachagua. There's a photo of Rigathi Gachagua right over there. I don't know if you guys are able to see it. You can see there's a flash sensor of my phone right there, right? So it says there's a photo of Rigathi Gachagua, and then there's a photo of Leonard Wamuthende, who won in Mbeere North, and as well as David Ndakwa, who won for Malava. The description goes, as Gachagua stirs up a storm, tensions have risen in the united opposition, with controversial remarks by former Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua ranking the outfit that is planning to field a joint presidential candidate against President William Ruto in the next general election. Page number 10. That's where that story is on. And then on top of the Daily Nation newspaper as well, they're talking about sacred profits inside thriving Holy Communion business. Pale watu mnakulanga sakramenti kwenye kanisa. Wanasema it's a big, thriving business. And then there's also an interesting highlight. MCA's blunder hunts Nyaribo easy Senate win. Of course, this comes after the impeachment and the ouster of, Boni Halwale, who is the majority whip. He was on a UDA ticket. He was massively representing Mulembe Nation. So MCA's blunder hunts Nyaribo easy Senate win. There's also other impeachment motions that are still there, including for Nyaribo, that has actually elevated him. So I think this is some of the interesting stories that we'll be following up for the better part of the day. Now, for the another last piece on the Daily Nation newspaper, it talks about crime. Witness links priestess to Shakahola Binzaro cults. New testimony has thrust Charlene Amido into sharper focus in the massacre of hundreds of followers of the Doomsday Cult. The story is on page 28 of the Daily Nation newspaper. And then another one talks about 58,000 more teachers are needed in senior school. Learners who will join senior school next month require 58,590 extra teachers for specialized subjects in the competency-based education CBE system. The science, technology, engineering, and mathematics STEM pathways is worst hit by staffing gaps. The story is on page number 12, and I believe teachers deserve to be compensated fully now that there's been a successful transition from Minet to now SHA that's solely owned by government. And the president had promised to hire I think 20 more thousand teachers come early next year in Feb or in January. But this year he said he's hired 70,000 plus teachers, which is an interesting thing. Now, on the Standard newspaper, the splash talks about Mbijiwe, and then it asks the question, dead or alive? That's the splash on the Standard newspaper. Without a trace. For more than 4 years, the family of missing security analyst Mwenda Mbijiwe has lived in agony. Now a high court order summoning Kenya's top police chiefs has reopened old wounds and raised new questions. As his mother collapses under the weight of despair, the state is finally being forced to explain how a man allegedly seized by police could vanish without a trace in a country where enforced disappearances have been willingly routine. This is bizarre for real, for sure. The story is on page number 4 and 5 of the Standard newspaper. There's also a photo as well of Mbijiwe. And then down there it talks about June 12th, 2021. That's the time Mbijiwe disappeared, to now December 16th. To December 16th as well. The photos of Douglas Kanja, the current Inspector General of Police. You can see right Mohammed Amin, who is the DCI boss. And it talks about abduction. Mwenda Mbijiwe was picked by people his relatives say were police on Thika Road in Nairobi while on his way to Meru. And then it talks about as well December 16th, the court date. Inspector General of Police and DCI boss are expected in court to explain the analyst's whereabouts. And then quote unquote, there's inside quote from Justice Martin Moya. He talks about, I have considered application made by both sides and therefore orders second and third respondents, that is IG and DCI, to appear in court physically on December 16th of 2025 to explain the whereabouts of Mbijiwe. And I think this is another shocking story that has left Mbijiwe's family in agony just to try and seek and find their loved one. It's really, it's heartbreaking, because I personally, my dad was abducted in 2019 towards the transition of 2018 to 2019, and he was found dumped and tortured up below a bridge in Bungoma. It's something that took a toll on me mentally. It took me so long. In fact, I came to terms with it just the other day. And then he later on ended up succumbing to the wounds that were inflicted on him by the abductors. So I can only imagine what this family is going through. And I think they deserve justice. And if Mbijiwe was picked by police, then he is in the hands of police. So who are to blame? The government. So justice to the family of Mwenda Mbijiwe. And then lastly, there's an interesting story as well about real estate. That's on the Standard business, I believe. Banks to up auctions as construction sector loan defaults rise. And then report, Dubai offers highest returns for investors, housing, developers seek local escalators and elevators. That's on matters real estate on the Standard newspaper. Let me see some of the blogs and what they're talking about. All right. The search for Malaysian Airlines flight MH37 to resume 11 years after the jet mysteriously vanished with the 239 on board. But there's a shocking finding that said there's a possibility that the Malaysian airline flight deep dived and disappeared they said probably UFOs abducted the flight in the air, or it fell in the Bermuda Angle. Is it the Bermuda Triangle? Yeah, where they believe no matter how high the flight is in the sky, it will always come down and just gets, sucked into that Bermuda Angle. And they say nobody has ever been, like no one has ever visited the Bermuda Angle. Like it's the deepest portion. I don't know if it's of what sea. Why is the Bermuda Triangle best? In what ocean or water body, so to say? Because I don't know if it's a sea. Of course, it's not an ocean. What sea is the Bermuda Triangle found in? Please let me know. Let me pose that question to you. Yes, let's have fun. Let's have fun. Let's have fun. Yes. What location, what sea is the Bermuda Triangle best at? Please let me know. So the search for that, 239 people just vanished like that in the skyline. I remember Candice Owens. Candice Owens has been very vocal following up on the story about, Bridget Macron. confirming that Brigitte Macron, who's the first lady of France, wife to Emmanuel Macron, is a man. There are so many proofs that have been broadcasted and published that she is a man. Shocking, shocking. So allegedly, her health deteriorated and she was admitted in hospital. She is currently under medication after Candice Owen continuously, reported on her gender. So I don't know if you can refer to the renewed search to begin on December 30th, 2025. It will be carried out by marine robotics firm Ocean Infinity under no find, no fee agreement. Whoa, whoa. Do you remember Ocean, the Ocean? Do you remember there's one of this, was it a submarine? They went under the sea and they never came back. It was from one of this, this Ocean something. It was also a billionaires initiative. The same way Elon Musk has that initiative of taking people to, the moon. And that's just really pathetic and sad. All right, developments of the story of Peter Oromo, who died mysteriously, who fell from 14th floor at a Kilimani apartment, Heartland Kilimani apartment, after fighting with, the lover. I don't know if it was the lover or it was a deal gone sour or it was a plan to unalive him. So CCTV footage has finally emerged, and this is what CCTV footage says. CCTV shows last moments of Festus Oromo. Festus, not Peter. Oromo, before he was reportedly pushed from the 14th floor of a Kilimani apartment. The CCTV footage obtained by Citizen TV shows the last moments of 25-year-old Festus Oromo before he was reportedly pushed to his death from the 14th floor of an Airbnb apartment in Nairobi's Kilimani area. From the footage, Festus and his female friend, who is a 48-year-old Lillian Murambiki, with whom he had booked the apartment, are seen in a confrontation before they closed the door, and that would be the last time he would be seen alive. At least 41 minutes after the two were captured in the confrontation, Festus' closeless body will be heard landing on top of a parked vehicle from the 14th floor of the apartment. He died on the spot. Police also confirmed he suffered broken limbs. This is just horrible, horrifying. Preliminary investigations have since established that Festus and Mora met on Tinder in 2024 and had been meeting occasionally until the fatal incident happened last Sunday. Festus' family has since transferred his body from the city mortuary to the General Cargo Funeral Home in Thika. The prime suspect, together with the second suspect, will remain in custody for the next 14 days as detectives continue with the investigations into the incident. This is just heartbreaking, extremely tragic, and dumbfounding, that two dudes, for me, the reason why I found it to be just like it was a plan to unalive Festus is he met this lady on Tinder. So the question is, who wanted who? Because the Tinder situation in our country is worse in a sense that you just don't know who this person is. Anyways, Tinder is meant for socializing, meeting whoever you want to date, whether gay, bi, straight, whatever you are. Swipe left, swipe right, you meet with this person. The thing, for me, my thing about Tinder is I don't trust anyone on social media. For real, for real, for real. I've really had some crazy encounters in the past about people I've met who you'd say, nah. If you're the same person online, and this is you in real life, then I don't think I want to meet you again. So meeting people from Tinder and then laying in bed with that person that first of all, you don't even know if she or she is a human being. She could be a celestial being. And I want to tell you the fact. Truth is, 90% of people, let me use the word half, or rather, let me say a majority of the people online, some of them are not human beings. In this world of artificial intelligence, could be bots, could be scammers, could be celestial beings, could be spirits, could be cult leaders, could be demoniacs, could be literally anyone, the worst you could ever imagine. So don't trust anyone you meet online. How desperate are you to have sex that you can hook up just, but anyways, I'm not using that to victimize Festus, but I just don't trust anyone online who is initiating sex, especially on a dating platform. Nada. So for me, I think this situation is probably Festus knew something, or this was a 3SOME, and they wanted something from Festus, and then he was not complying, and then they unalived him. That's my verdict, period. I don't know what's yours. All right, as we close it up, I can see there's an interesting story here about Nairobi Nganya that had a full graffiti theme of Tanzania President Samia Suluhu forced to rebrand over alleged boycott. Yeah, I can see it's right over there. They literally rebranded from, having Samia Suluhu's photo here, and then they changed it to, let me read it to you because you can't see it right over there really clearly. They rebranded it to Young Africans Tanzania, Daima Mbele Nyuma Mwiko, ROG Sako, Champions. Initially, the graffiti on it was Awamu ya Sita, CCM. Oh yeah, in fact, it was campaigning for Samia Suluhu's party, Chama cha Mapinduzi. Yeah, that's what CCM meant. So they rebranded it to different, but still it's Tanzanian graffiti anyways. An Nairobi-based PSV matatu that previously featured a full-body graffiti of Tanzania's President Samia Suluhu has been forced to undergo a rebrand following reports of reduced business as a result of passenger boycotts. The vehicle, which initially displayed artwork praising President Suluhu and her CCM party, has now been redesigned with the new name Champions. The fresh look aligns with Yanga FC, one of Tanzania's most successful football clubs, completely replacing the earlier Suluhu-inspired graphics. Yeah, as it should be, man. As it should be. This one is interesting. Media personality Grace Msalame unveils a new look after undergoing a bariatric weight loss procedure. Oh, she looks snatched. She looks snatched for sure. She looks snatched. That's how she looks. Interesting. I'll tell you this. There's an outburst of use of Ozempic drugs, and I think I've done a report. It's right here on this channel. Just check it out. One interesting thing that you need to understand that the Ozempic drugs are weight loss drugs, but they are originally meant for people who have been diagnosed with diabetes. So the ones available in the Kenyan market have not been certified by the Chemicals and Poisons Board. And also they don't have a license from the manufacturers abroad. Ozempic drugs are are now being peddled and hoarded in pharmacies, body spas, and even, because when I did that a comprehensive report, I actually cut it short because it was longer. It showed places and sources where people go to buy these weight loss drugs, and it's in bid to just get snatched, look slimmer, because it's now becoming an easy alternative to cosmetic surgery where you can just cheat through the process. Like instead of you losing body mass through a process of, working out, training at the gym and dieting, you can get an injection. So the dangers of that is most of those drugs that are being sold in the Kenyan market aren't original. They are generic, and the after effects of using the generic drugs are extremely fatal. You could die of a heart attack, of a stroke, paralysis. So the most common ones are three: Wegovy, another one called Mounjaro, and another one called Ozempic. Most of them that are available are the pens. So the pens are meant to be injected. So all you can do is like inject yourself either on the tummy, on your hand, or designated places where that drug should be taken in. But initially they were meant to treat diabetes, not weight loss drugs. But look, there's an outburst of that. All right, and I think that makes a summary of some of the hot trending topics for today. I'll not be able to do a whole massive recording. I think we can end it here because it's already past the half-hour mark, because I'm going to be busy today. So I decided to just come and do a whole streaming. But I appreciate you guys for the massive support. Continue watching. Check out many other videos right here on my channel. I'll be open to conversations. I'm open to collaborations. I'm open to advertising. I advertise a lot on my other platforms. I've had really an interesting, I'd say, interaction with some good people who, I'd say, have sent me their products, and I have done for them some interesting shoutouts at a good fee. So feel free to slide in my DM. Actually, my contact is up over there. Just the cover photo of this channel. And feel free to say what you want to say, so long as if it's not abusive, so long as it's not, taking a dig or a shot at someone in my family or somebody very close to me or coming at me. I'm open to it, baby. Let's go. Let's have it. So please let me know what caught your attention. What also would you love to hear? Please let me know at Brian Sakwa 1, and I'll definitely see you next time right here on the Brian Sakwa Show. Guys, have a good one. Have a good one. Have a good one. Have a good one. Okay. Have a good one.